SuperBarch, SuperBarch, SuperBarch. Absolutely amazing tack. We're going to show you guys how it is done. In our most recent CWL, we had one player who was amazing at the SuperBarch attack, so let's get into it. Welcome back to the Clash Tips YouTube channel. All of these attacks are brought to us by Abdallah Abgod, one of his many accounts. Every single attack, if you're going to be using SuperBarch, of course, is using the Super Archer Blimp. There are different ways that he's going to show us how to do this. If you can do it without the Grand Warden, then the SuperBarch portion of your attack is going to go much smoother because you're going to be able to use that Warden's Tome ability to get through some especially hard portions of the base. But of course, you're going to bring in your Super Archer Blimp. You're going to rage that Super Archer Blimp. You're going to tome that Super Archer Blimp. You're going to clone, not tome. Tome, clone, tome, clone, tome, clone. You're going to clone that Super Archer Blimp, and then you're going to, of course, invisit, count to 4 every time. That's been the easiest way that I have had whenever I'm doing a Sarch Blimp. That Sarch Blimp will clear out a ton of the base. Of course, with this Sarch Blimp, you want to get down the Town Hall, so that way you don't have to deal with it with your heroes. And then you have to make a determination. After the Sarch Blimp clears everything out, am I going to go counterclockwise or am I going to go clockwise? In this case, Abdallah decided to go clockwise with his heroes. Now, he's going to be bringing a Golem. He's also going to be bringing an E-Titan. Of course, the purpose for that Golem makes sense. We're going to try to get that Golem out ahead of our heroes so that way our heroes can live longer. The purpose of that E-Titan is to stand behind a little bit. So you don't want that E-Titan to be a meat shield, even though she has some heavy meat on her. She can take a lot of damage, but you still don't want her to get out ahead. She will inevitably get out ahead, but you want to try to hold her back as much as possible. That way she can do the job that she is there to do, which is to not slow this attack down, because skellies can be horrendous on the SuperBarch attack. If your heroes get caught up in a couple skellies and a Tesla farm pops, or a scatter shot gets locked on, or a single target inferno, we don't have a lot of spells because we used all of our spell complement on the Sarch Blimp in order to take out that entire portion of the base. So you have to make sure that those skelly traps don't get popped, holding everything up. If you do have a skelly trap that pops up at the end of the attack, then that can mean defeat with this attack, at least specifically, the SuperBarch attack. But attack number 1 from Abdallah on his Abgod base, absolutely beautiful. Let's show you attack number 2. Attack number 2, of course, coming from Abdallah once again. Now, this attack really works well, and before I say that, I want you to see how he's taking down this RC. So if you have a free hero grab, Rage Super Barbs and a couple of Headhunters are absolutely perfect for that. Also, I love, this is something that you can only gain with experience, knowing whether or not you need to use the Warden with your Super Archer Blimp or not. Again, that's something that you have to practice with. Of course, Abdallah's super skilled at this. He knows what he's doing. Also, another thing is you're going to be bringing more invis spells than you normally do. So with my other Super Archer Blimps, I was only bringing 5, maybe 6 invis spells, but Abdallah every single time is bringing a Rage, a Clone, and 7 invisibility spells, and he's able to get a ton down with that Super Archer Blimp. Then again, you have to make your decision. Am I going to go counterclockwise or I'm going to go clockwise? Of course, this time again, he decides to go clockwise, putting down his King, putting down his Golem, putting down his Archer Queen behind that, and then because he did not have to use his Grand Warden, threw down his Grand Warden behind that, and then of course the E-Titan, if it's something that you're bringing along. If you don't have room for it look at the base, see if that's something that you're going to need to do or not, but make sure that you bring the E-Titan if you can. And then as your heroes are making it through the base, as you can see, you're going to be putting down the Rage Barbarians on the outer buildings. Now that has 2 purposes. Number one, of course, is to keep the heroes inside the base. Typically, on any base that's built by a decent base builder, you're going to have all of your core defenses inside the base. And so you want your heroes, which are the strongest, the strongest troops in your army, you want them hitting those big defenses. Oh, and there's that E-Titan right there. I didn't see it earlier. But you want the queen, you want the king that are hitting all of those amazing defenses that are there in the middle. And you're just using the SuperBarch to collapse them in. So if you have point defenses on the outside, if you have storages on the outside, collectors, anything like that, that is what you're using the Super Barbarians for. And it works extremely well. Let's show you attack number 3. Attack number 3 coming at us. This one was a little more difficult for me to envision, but I love this start right here where Abdallah decides to trigger the poison tower. Does it in a perfect way. Rage Barbarians have just enough health to where they can stay up long enough to trigger that poison tower. He waits until that poison spell is done, and then he sends in his blimp. He wants his blimp to come right here, right around where that air blower is, and so he's going to put just a few balloons down. He's also going to put in a few Super Barbarians in order to distract. Also, underneath that Warden's Tome, he has a couple Headhunters in order to take down that free RC. So if you can do that, make sure you do so. In all of his army comps, he's typically bringing 2 to 4 Headhunters, so that way he can take down those heroes as necessary. A lot of times, if you have a king that's kind of on the outside, and if you're sending your queen and your king and the main crux of your push around one side, a lot of times he'll bring his RC up the bottom. He will distract the king with a couple of raged barbarians. He will throw a few headhunters in behind those and then throw his RC down. That way he can easily get through it. Now with this one, after the Super Archer Blimp is done, again, 7 invis spells on that. He has to decide, am I going clockwise? Am I going counterclockwise? And I'm seeing a pattern here. He's deciding to go clockwise most of the time. Now notice on this backside, we still do have that king, so we will stay zoomed out. That way we can kind of see exactly how he handles that king. But we're going to be putting down our king, we're going to be putting down our golem, we're going to have our E-Titan, and of course our queen behind that. Unfortunately, in this attack, in order to get that Super Archer Blimp in there, we had to use our Grand Warden ability, so we do not have the Grand Warden with this attack. We have a few archers that are brought in with each attack. That's just to take care of the outer layer of buildings where there's no defenses left behind. That way we can get that. He's collapsing in with his Super Barbarians, making sure that he can get everything through. Typically with each attack, as I said before, he's bringing in 4 super wall breakers. And those wall breakers, of course, are to break the king and the queen in. Now, he's not going to have any jump spells, and I almost just missed it. Put a couple raged barbarians down right there, then threw a few headhunters down, then his RC. And he typically will bring the RC up the backside and then kind of collapse them in. On this one, he got just a little lucky in that his RC shield was able to take down the last few defenses. But as we talked earlier, those skelly spells can really trip everything up. That's the reason that you have the E-Titan in this army camp, and hopefully those skelly spells don't mess you up towards the end of the attack. But let's look at the next one and see in a little more detail exactly how this goes. Next attack, of course, coming at us from Abdallah. Now we're looking at how we're going to get our Super Archer Blimp in. If you see a way to get it in without having to use the Warden's Tome ability, then try to do that. He possibly could have brought it in on this side. He decides instead, and again, this comes from experience, to bring it in on this far side and tome it over. Now, he wants to land it right here around where the CC is. The one thing that you want to try to make sure that you do is, if you can, leave that Warden on ground. The reason for that is if there's an E-Titan that is in the enemy CC, and the Warden is left on air, then that E-Titan will burn up your Super Archers because the E-Titan has nothing necessarily to go to. You know, I also realize the E-Titan can attack air units, so I'm not completely correct on that. So just use your best judgment on what exactly it is that you need to do. Again, 7 invis spells. The Super Archer Blimp was able to clear out a ton. We have to determine if we're going to go clockwise or counterclockwise. And in this specific attack, it's a little more difficult because there's not a clear pie shape. It's more of a donut hole that was taken out. But he decides this time to go counterclockwise. And I found it really interesting how he decided to use that. Put his king down, then put down his golem, put down his E-Titan. E-Titan's attacking the air targets. So I was completely wrong on that. But using his super barbarians to block it in. Now, what you don't want is for the king and the queen to split up. And there's a danger of that. Right after this queen hits this archer tower, is going to go to that builder hut, and then there's danger of the queen going north up here. Try to prevent that as much as possible because you want the king and the queen to stay together. So use your super barbarians strategically to make sure that your king and your queen stay together. Again, he's going to be bringing the RC in on this back side. Fortunately, had to deal with that single target Inferno, which is going to roast through his barbarian. But let's go ahead and watch in. We're going to be using our super barbarians as before, and here he brings in his RC. Watch how he brings the headhunters in behind. The Diggy is actually stunning that multi-target Inferno, so that way it doesn't do a ton of damage. We're using the super barbarians to collapse and secondarily to distract. So whenever you have your queen coming in, if the queen is at low health, you can use those super barbarians to distract the point defenses. That way they're not targeting your queen, and your queen, which is the most powerful, will still live on for a little bit longer. Let's show you this last attack and just wrap it up in this video. This last attack coming on day number 7 of CWL, where In the Dark actually promoted to Champs 1. Now we're looking to see how can we get a super archer blimp right in to the town hall, and there is a nice little channel right here that he can drop a few super archers, because I'm sure that if he dropped it up here closer to the town hall, that there are lots of giant bombs. And as you can see, one of the giant bombs actually starts to go off after he places down. There we go. There's the giant bomb. And I'm sure there's a couple giant bombs right up here as well. Now, the super archers have a super long range. They can hit a building that's up to 12 tiles away, but they will target buildings that are up to 6 tiles away. So as long as you can get your super archers within 6 tiles of that town hall, then you're going to be able to get it down. Now, I don't notice a lot of wall breakers being brought in this super archer blimp, but if you need to break a wall to get that through, then that is an option as well by putting wall breakers inside your super archer blimp to get them to step closer to the town hall if needed. Now we're going to be putting down our queen. The queen was not under that much damage. We held off the king on that time, dropped the king, dropped the golem, and we're collapsing in with those super barbarians. We, of course, have brought 4 super wall breakers. That, of course, is to get the king and the queen into this core of the base, so that way they can do a ton of damage. Unfortunately, that golem is stuck on that. That eagle is not doing a ton to protect our heroes. Now, this CC is one of the worst to have to deal with because you don't want your heroes to get caught up while all of these defenses are hitting them. So something that's super difficult. Also, something that's super interesting, whenever you're bringing in super wall breakers, maybe not 3 at a time, but if you can put 2 at a time, and if one of them is killed, then that ensures that the other one goes through. He was trying to make it all the way to this wall because this is a super high damage area, especially with that rage spell tower. He decided to bring the RC in on this backside to help deal with that high damage area, and it actually almost worked for the defender where he was almost able to stop this attack. But this is another example of bringing in your super barbarians so that way they distract. Tesla farm pops. He's able to continue distracting. He's able to get all of those Teslas down with his super barbarians. He does have 3 left. He is in a little bit of danger of not getting this, but he's going to bring in his super barbarians on this side and on this side in order to make sure that they distract for that queen as it's coming in. Gets those 2 down. The only thing that's really left that can do any damage to his queen is that scatter shot, and he's able to get it down. The Super Barbarian Super Archer Blimp attack, absolutely amazing. Give it a shot. It's something that you're going to have to practice with. Hopefully this video gives you some ideas, and a huge thank to Abdallah for showing us how it's done. Make sure you like this video. Share it with anybody who's curious how the Super Barbarian, Super Barch, Super Sarch blimp is done. We will see you next video. This is TipDog20 signing out.